A data center is effectively a warehouse, a large shed full of racking, and it's the physical location where all of the data that we're using is stored. Think about the rise of what we're doing at the moment. People have their phones, they want to stream, they want to get all of that data, all of that information like that. That doesn't come without having a data center nearby within the proximity to store all of that information. So we've seen a change in the real estate sector in the last 5 years post-COVID. We've seen the push in industrial logistics and push of loads of those things. But much as we as a society crave that demand for the instant access to connectivity, to data, etc., it comes at, some might say, a cost and a requirement to have these data centers there farming that information and hosting it so that we can produce the content that we need and store the data. The other important thing to say is with internet banking, with security of information, with the speed and the rise of AI as well, data centers have become so important, not just on a national basis, but an international basis, that's been acknowledged by our government. The Secretary of State for Science and Innovation has described them as the engines of modern life. We need them. We need that side of it, like it or not. And so it's important within the real estate setting to think about how we can provide for them, what impact there'll be, and what the challenges and what the opportunities are. Challenges from an energy perspective and from a planning perspective for data centers need to be considered. We've spent a lot of time looking at sustainability and looking at an environmental future, both nationally and globally. But with the requirement for data centers comes huge amounts of power that are required for it. In context, if I was to ask ChatGPT one question, it would use 10 times the amount of power that it would use than if I just typed it into Google. Globally, the use of ChatGPT daily, the amount of water that it takes to cool that is the equivalent of everybody in Taiwan flushing their toilets at the same time. Those are phenomenal figures. So we've got to factor that in what we're trying to do and how we need it. Now, we've already identified and said that there's a need for this because we crave the access and the speed to technology. We've got to balance that up in terms of the energy requirements. Planning needs to be considered. The consultation on the NPFF and the general position in relation to planning. The government has identified data centers and in fact the delivery of digital infrastructure and identified that needs to be pushed through. So there's been a conversation by Rachel Reeves and a discussion in terms of these grey areas and what will it look like for planning size. It looks likely that data centers might be considered under that modicum in terms of how they can deliver these because of the requirement nationally to get more data centers in play. That comes at a bit of an impact and a consideration for industrial and logistics. So we saw in COVID and we saw through that area the amount of immediacy. We talked about immediacy earlier on, the immediacy of things we want to order. We're all reliant on a click and order, next day will deliver it to me, Amazon will deliver it to me. So industrial and logistics put a big pull on the real estate sector and requirements for that. Now, Savills in their research last year estimated that there were over 400 acres of land being developed and considered for data center development. If you look at that on normal development models, that's over 8 million square foot of what would normally be sheds in industrial and warehouse. Now, as I understand it, within the annual pipeline that's normally speculatively delivered in that sector, you're talking about 8.7 million. So you're basically saying, in lieu of sheds, we've got a similar amount of land for data centers being delivered. So much as that's a great opportunity and needed within the industrial and logistics sector, you could say it's a bit of a risk within the sector because there's a push-pull as to requirement and demand for that land and what it's going to be used for. Acknowledging that there are challenges and the position in relation to planning, they've announced AI growth zones. Blackpool have come forward with Silicon Sands, backed by Singaporean investments. We've got the transatlantic connection coming into Blackpool, and we've got a marriage of quite a few things there really. The reliable points, we've got solar farm being delivered, we've got 2 wind farms being delivered out in the North Irish Sea, and we've got the enterprise zone there. So Blackpool City Council are working really well with developers and with investors to look at how they can work together to deliver a sustainable data center right in a key location where we've got the transatlantic link to America. Some people would ask the question, why is it important to be proximate to a data center? Well, we touched on before the speed and our reliability and how we want things to be immediately ascertainable at our fingertips. Therefore, we want less latency. We want speed in terms of those points. So being by data centers is vital for that. It's also important to acknowledge from a national perspective and regulations that exist. Having data centres within our country allows us to control them under our regulations and under our regime and our legislation, and not be reliant on a global risk in terms of control of that data and what will happen with it and accessibility to it. What can we learn internationally in relation to data centres? There's over 1,200 data centres within Europe. We're now here at MIPIM and we're talking and looking at the opportunities globally within real estate. Asset classes are featuring predominantly at this year's MIPIM, data centres being one of them, and looking at the future and sustainability of those asset classes. We've seen recently Dublin and Amsterdam announce moratoriums due to concerns in relation to energy in the data centre. So it'll be vital and important that we take note from our European cousins and look at opportunities, much as we've got an emerging sector, as to the risks and how we can deal with those in a responsible way for the environment and for the real estate sector going forward.